Hey guys, first things first, I'm going to be continuing the book, like I said, Autism, a Gift from God. Starting the second half today. Throw things off the bat, as I always say, thank you so much for your patience. I know a lot of people have been waiting over a year for this, but I've finally finished the book. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to read a chapter. Preferably I'll go and try and upload one every Saturday, depending on what kind of week we have. So I thought I'll give you a chapter today and onwards. There's about 10-15 chapters left of this book. So hopefully I'll be finished by the spring, and then obviously see where we go from there. Like always, please give me your feedback. Positive, negative, doesn't matter. Tell me how much you enjoyed this book. If you're the first person, if you've just come onto this video, I would recommend you read my previous chapters first before just going on to this, because I do reference people, I do reference characters that are in the previous chapters, so you might not understand what's going on. I'm just styling my hair out. Let us begin. And it says, "Dear beloved reader slash listener, all I can say at this moment in time is thanks for the wait." Chapter 12, Red Route. As I was fast approaching 15 years old, and I previously mentioned in a previous chapter that classes in my year at school was expanding, I think it's only fair to say that there was a minute fraction of my year that was put in a class that was officially named Red Route. Now, a while ago, I was reflecting on my past, probably around the same time I decided to write this book, whose sole aim was to explore certain experiences of my life, officially, in this particular book, my teenage years. I fundamentally made the comparison to those that would get and appreciate the reference, that the class I was put in, so aptly named as Red Route, had similar parallels. Sorry, you can see my face there. Had similar parallels to the Game of Thrones Far Distant Outpost, the Night's Watch. See, those that will get the reference and appreciate the sentiment, the Night's Watch was a place that people would be put there because society, for no words to describe it, didn't know exactly what to do with them. My school seemed to have a tendency for putting people that wasn't necessarily disruptive, or the term underachieving as a term my particular school so frequently liked to use. They just simply didn't know what to do with them. So arguably, they was pushed to one side. And with respect, that's pretty much how I interpreted this Red Route. See, putting me out the equation myself, especially at that age, I can admittedly say I was incredibly disruptive. So I knew that I personally deserved the long march to the wall, as it were, and swear my vows before Weirwood Tree. But I remember looking around the class and wondering what these people were doing here. Most of the people that was in Red Route was dear friends of mine. So in one aspect I was in good company, but I felt bad for them, as I knew these people, my dear friends, deserved better. They was incredibly talented people. And I do feel that sending them to the Night's Watch, if you would allow me to continue the analogy, the powers that be was doing, was an incredible disservice to them. I then at the time never considered to be as talented. A part of me felt that I did belong here. To draw parallels from the Constantine movie, another quick analogy, I smoked the cigarettes and sinned my life away. I knew I was heading to hell, but more importantly, I knew it was a fate I deserved. However, my friends, my classmates deserved better. Personally, I felt like I was a talentless wanker, an autistic soul trying to make his way into a harsh galaxy, as it were. But I must confess, even knowing they didn't belong in this class and wishing I could do something to improve their fate, I must admit, a more selfish part of me was glad I was in such good company. I was kind of glad it wasn't just me in the class. I strongly remember one particular day in this class. Every Wednesday, and side note, I can't actually believe as I'm writing this, I remember this in such a vivid detail. But every Wednesday, we would stand outside an entirely separate building from the rest of the school called D Block. And we would have to wait every Wednesday morning outside the entrance to this building. And every Wednesday, we would be greeted by a teacher named Kwasniaki. Now, if I had to compare my old school teachers to Bond villains, if Sloane was the kind of villain that would sit on a leather chair, stroking a white cat, telling Mr. Bond how much of a wonderful evening it was, Kwasniaki was the kind of Bond villain that would be a lackey. He had the build of a henchman and would have about 10-15 minutes screen time before having his ass kicked by Roger Moore, seconds before he meets a horrific death in a pool of sharks. Now, I don't remember every single Wednesday, of course I don't, that would be quite ludicrous. But this one particular Wednesday, Kwasniaki was doing his usual rounds of mental exercises, kind of like a meditation, and we had to imagine a scene or a setting. And afterwards he would try to give us all a life lesson, all attempt to tell us something deep and profound. Now I suppose this might not be so bad, if our beloved teacher had some depth and wit about him. But while some people might be fortunate enough to have spiritual guidance from great pioneers like the Dalai Lama, but the closest we had with was Kwasniaki, who had the wits of a Blackpool donkey that could be called Lama. If you can try to imagine a Mr. Rogers kind of person, who's built like a brick shithouse and tries to give people the impression that he's the second coming, you pretty much imagine Kwasniaki. I remember most of these classes I spent staring outside the window, sitting either in between or beside two of my closest friends, Will and Alex. I would hear the occasional conversation from Will, asking us if we had seen the latest episode of Top Gear that would be on the previous Sunday. But I would always say I just missed it or I was busy. Fortunately, catch-up TV wasn't a thing just yet. And to be quite frank with you, I found the idea, should be past tense, of spending my Sunday evening and watching a smug, politically incorrect middle-class man wearing denim jeans, spending an hour talking about cars that hardly anyone in the audience would ever be able to afford, tedious. Maybe it's an autism thing, just that putting things in a simpler context, but the reality was I just found watching Top Gear a complete waste of my time. I remember staring out that window, sometimes feigning interest, most of the time not, caring less, and now and again I would look around the classroom around me, watching Carl and Oliver seemingly engaging conversation. My best friend Alex sat right next to me eating a whole full English breakfast. By the fact that I was amazed by the fact that some sandwich boy had the skill to fit an entire English breakfast in a sandwich, and I couldn't grasp the concept of which I was amazed for. The fact that, sorry, I'll read that again. I couldn't tell you which I was amazed most by. The fact that there was a sandwich boy that had the skill to fit an entire English breakfast in a sandwich, or the fact that Alex could eat it all, was so bizarre because he always seemed to have such a huge appetite. But judging by his size, didn't seem to go anywhere. I remembered feeling envious, wishing that my metabolism was that good. And now and again, I would look across to a classmate who was also a good friend of mine, who we seemingly developed a strong friendship over the years as we was in school together, whose name I will not mention for fear of embarrassment. However, she had jet black hair and pale skin, and a Kate Bush vibe about her, or at least I thought as much at the time anyway. And if you hadn't have guessed by now, I had a huge crush on her. But I didn't just find her attractive, I found her to be good company as well. And I never said anything to her for fear of losing such a valued friend. And deep down knowing, truly knowing, I never had anything to offer. So to this day, I don't think she ever realised about this crush. And to be honest, I don't think she ever did. But alas, I appear to have got sidetracked. So one fateful Wednesday, Kwasniaki asked me a question. How I knew this? Was I paying attention? Of course I wasn't. But all of a sudden, every eye in that room was beamed at me, including Kwasniaki's. Knowing half the class expecting a witty reply, the other half expecting something entertaining. In truth, I cannot remember what I did. But I do remember Kwasniaki seeming to have a tendency to attempt to make an example out of me by showing me up in front of the entire class, making snide comments, and verbalising to the entire class how embarrassed I must have felt. So I developed the mentality of it. If I'm going to be damned, I might as well do the very things I'm going to be damned for. So as petty as I knew this would make me look, I made every attempt, week in, week out, to try and get under his skin. But as I was slowly forming this rebellion, as it were, someone had already beat me to the punch. As a classmate called James on one fateful Wednesday afternoon slammed his fists on a table in defiance towards Kwasniaki's arrogance, and we all got up and left him, and followed James rather, and left the classroom, staging protests in the corridors, hoping that this would get enough attention to end our time on the wall, to use that ever great analogy once again. I hope you enjoyed this chapter, and again, like always, I've noticed you couldn't really see my face properly, but it doesn't matter as long as you could hear me read that out. As always, I hope you enjoyed the chapter. Please let me know what you think. I would appreciate any feedback. It's okay if you don't. And as always, Dancing Bear out and stay safe.